Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. This is 9.5, 10, and this has been toggling 9.5, 10 since it came out. So by the time you hear this, it's either going to be 9.5 or it's going to be 10. It's going to toggle back and forth all the way up until kickoff. The total is anywhere between 35 and a half out there. And so, Adam, when we take a look, it's going to be Mason Rudolph. I don't think that's a shock to anybody. He has looked the best at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Take from that what you will. On the Buffalo Bills side of things, as I mentioned, they had to rally last week to get that win over the Dolphins. But in fairness, they did rally. So they were able to come back and win that game. They did not play during the regular season, but they did play in the preseason. So it's not a complete unfamiliarity, but pretty much an unfamiliarity between these two squads. This is another weather game up there in Buffalo. Temps in the 20s. We're going to get sustained winds in the 15 to 18 mile an hour range. We're going to get gusts into that 25 to 30 mile an hour range, which could affect the scoring as well.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing some weather forecasts that are even more pessimistic than that, where that wind could be sustained more up around 25. And look, if you're not thinking about the game from, tell me if I'm wrong, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when did we have the New England Buffalo Monday night game that was like the under of the century?
Yeah, I think it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago that we had that game. And I think it was one of those where you could be scared off by all of the movement down that you saw on the total, and then we didn't even come close to where it went off. I think we're right back in that spot here again, Matt.
Hey, Adam, remember, we had a game go off at 29 last week, and it was
Didn't
safely
touch
under.
it.
Yeah, and it was
Didn't
safely
touch it.
under. Yeah.
Yeah, there's very little path for me in this set of weather conditions to an over. If you don't feel like you got the number you wanted and you're scared of this number, that's fine. I can understand that. I still think this is an under, though, and it's for multiple reasons. First of all, I will give you this on Buffalo. I was very firm in saying I thought that was one of the best plays of the year was under in that game last week. And to be honest, even with what the score looked like, I felt kind of fortunate that it got there because Buffalo probably should have scored a few more points than they did in that game. They had a couple of drives and with turnovers down deep, and they probably should have at least had 28 in that game. But these weather conditions are going to lean into what we've already seen as the Joe Brady tendencies to run the football. You're going to see both of these teams pound it out on the ground. They're just not going to be able to consistently throw it. Now, we've heard all about Josh Allen has the arm to cut through the wind. He absolutely does, but Joe Brady already hasn't had him throwing. So it's not a matter of can he, it's a matter of will the offense allow him to. So I have no opinion on the side in this game. That's a whole lot of points with a total that's sitting where it is, but I like under. I like it less just for understanding purposes. I like it less than the Kansas City Miami under. I think that is a stronger confidence play for me than this one, but that's the way I'd look in this game.
So the Bills kind of under the radar here were on the offensive line standpoint. They started all 5 of the same players for all 17 games this year. They only gave up 12 sacks, which is the fewest in the NFL, which is pretty crazy when you think about it, because we didn't hear much about this Bills offensive line. And to lean into Adam's point here, Steven, we are getting a team that is very content to run the ball. Since Brady took over, James Cook is averaging 16.7 attempts per game. He's also getting 3.7 targets per game, which is basically just an extension of the run because he's not running real routes. These are just little swing passes out to him as well. So he's basically getting 20 attempts per game. And Josh Allen over the last 2 games, which this leads me to believe that this was a saving of Josh Allen till the end of the season type deal, because everyone's like, Josh Allen's not running as much. Why didn't Josh Allen run as much? Why aren't they using him as much? Well, when it got down to the nitty gritty the last couple of weeks, Josh Allen has 27 rush attempts over the last 2 games, right? And I expect we see a whole bunch more of that as well, especially given these conditions too. I like Allen rush yards. I like rush attempts for James Cook. I think that all of those are certainly in play in this one. What do you see here from a Bills Steelers standpoint?
For Buffalo, I find it kind of ironic because the past few years with their high-powered, high-velocity passing offense, I've made the hot take with just our staff that I almost wish they wouldn't win the division and wouldn't have to play in Buffalo weather, because I'd rather see them on the road in a dome or some southern beautiful weather city, because I think they'd have a higher ceiling then. And then they changed to Brady at OC, and the bye week comes, and there was a stretch where they were the most run-heavy team in the NFL. You mentioned the offensive line continuity that has led to a top 10 run blocking win rate offensive line. And when you are going to play in an extreme wind game like this, well, that makes your success rate in short yardage that much more critical and that much more important, because you're probably not going to kick a field goal at certain spots. You're probably going to go for it more than you normally would. So having Josh Allen as your battering ram in those short yardage situations is a big deal and a big weapon for this game. So it's just ironic to me that we get to this point, and I actually think the new look Bills are best equipped to handle these conditions more so than they have been at any point since Josh Allen was the quarterback in Buffalo. I don't love it in like a Super Bowl dome environment conditions necessarily, but I actually think this might lead to them being less likely to turn the ball over as much as they do with Josh Allen throwing interceptions. So, I think they're well built for this. I think they win the game. This was early in the week when the price was, at least reasonable. Part of the money line parlay I had with Kansas City. I just have a hard time seeing how, with the home field and the conditions and the opponent that they're playing, how Buffalo or Kansas City loses this weekend. And at this point, I think it's, I'm just not interested in backing Pittsburgh. I will say, like on paper, when you have a total this low and a team getting 10 points, you may want to consider the dog. I'm never considering Buffalo -10 at this point. I'm finding creative ways to get them cheaper. But Pittsburgh, to me, has been just such a fraud all season. They're one of those winning record teams with a negative point differential, third string quarterback that's been, riding that against bad teams. And now they have their best defensive player, TJ Watt, unlikely to be on the field. So not on the field, actually, it's been confirmed. I'm good. And I'm just trying to find creative ways to include Buffalo in parlays to win this game.
Adam, I don't think we can understate the loss of TJ Watt for this defense. When you have a guy that wreaks havoc on the quarterback as much as he does, and even though we don't expect there to be a ton of passing in this game on the Buffalo side of things, there will be some passing. They will have to throw the ball. They will have to drop back. It's not going to be a 0 pass attempt game. And if you look at what TJ Watt does to disrupt all of that and him not being out there, I think it is worth kind of spending at least just 30 seconds and trying to say, like, listen, this is not the same Steelers team. There are very few guys where we look and from a defensive perspective say, like, that is a different team without that dude out there. But TJ Watt is one of those guys for sure.
It would kind of be like losing you from this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I do appreciate that. That's nice and warming.
The heart flutters.
It is. I will say this. Weather changes rapidly, especially in the Northeast. And this is a Sunday game. And we're recording this on Thursday evening. Things could change. And so if things change, I will be willing to put in an over ticket if this does not look near as bad as people say come Saturday night or whatever, or something like that, because 35.5 is a pretty low total for a Bills team that I can almost chalk up mid-20s for them in this game in conditions that aren't absolutely horrible. And then we're not asking for very much at all from Pittsburgh to kind of help us out, chip in on the over there.
Just keep in mind that this Bills team is going to be a shut it down Bills team, right? Either one of these teams with any sort of lead is going to lean even harder into the run. Like, if you're someone who's a same game parlay player, I don't even think the weather matters so much if you want to take multiple running backs and string together some attempt overs for, like, normally you'd be like, well, is it going to be Najee Harris or is it going to be Jalen Warren? Those carries have been pretty evenly split for the last few weeks here. And you already talked about James Cook.
Yeah, it's going to be a game in which you're going to see some movement, guys, on Sunday morning. So just be prepared for it if you're looking at to move one way or the other, because as soon as the pregame shows hit, you guys have seen this happen for the last several years. We watch. As soon as the pregame show hits and they cut to the weather and they're going to show the flag and they're going to show it either waving or not waving, or they're going to whatever and all, it's like the game will move. And so just if you're looking for it to move in your direction, whatever your direction is, just be ready for it, because it's going to happen whenever they do that on Sunday morning for this game.